A sheriff in Madison County, North Carolina announces that AR-15 style firearms will be kept at the schools in the county to make sure that bad guys that intend to do bad things to the kids will be stopped in their tracks using the AR-15s. Some sound thinking. Let's talk about it when we get back. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, proud American gun owner, best-selling author, constitutional attorney, and member of the United States Supreme Court Bar. If you haven't subscribed to the Four Boxes Diner Second Amendment channel, please do so and show your love for the right to keep and bear arms. It's just been announced that a sheriff in Madison County, North Carolina has said that they will have AR-15 firearms in all the schools in that county so that if there's, heaven forbid, a school shooter that shows up to do bad things to the faculty or to the students, the deputies of the sheriff's offices will be able to step in, grab the AR-15s, and protect the lives of the children and, of course, the faculty. I'm glad to see that there's at least some common sense going on in the United States. Of course, I am a firm believer that at the end of the day, armed teachers are more valuable than armed police officers in these settings. But I do want to make 5 quick points about this story out of North Carolina, which I'm applauding the sheriff for connecting the dots and making sure there's at least an AR-15 present in all the schools to protect the kids and the faculty from bad people. Few observations. First of all, as a general matter, we know that if there's a criminal or shooter, the first thing that many people do is pick up the phone and call 911. But why do they call 911? What's the point of the 911 call? Well, we know what the point of the 911 call is. They're calling people to show up. They're asking to call 911 and ask for people to show up with firearms, usually AR-15 style firearms, usually select fire. So it's actually better than AR-15s because it's actually automatic option, as well as the 30-round magazines and then some. So the point is, the reason why people call 911 is to have people show up with firearms. And my observation is, well, why don't we just have people with firearms already in the school so they're there ahead of time before anybody bad decides to show up and do something bad at the school? And the fact that they're already at the school should serve as a great deterrent for bad people doing bad things to good people. So number two, the other observation I want to make is, the cliche is true. Cliches are sometimes true, which is that you want to fight fire with fire. So if you know some of these school shooters are showing up with AR-15 rifles and they're showing up with other, weaponry, you want to make sure you have equal, if not greater, firepower to fend off against the bad people. Again, you fight fire with fire. Cliches are cliches because there's a lot of, implicit wisdom that have been built up over the generations that allow us as humans to not have to relearn the lessons, so that I can assume that a tiger, for example, is a man-eater without having to experience it myself, because I learned from what other people have learned in the past, and I've learned from other people's mistakes. So that's why the notion of you fight fire with fire is a lesson that humans have, it's a summary of a series of lessons that Americans and humans have learned. And again, if people are going to show up doing bad, with firearms to do bad things to good people, well, fight fire with fire is a good idea, meaning, you use firearms if they're using firearms or weapons and you fight back. My third observation is, of course, we should be protecting our children and our schools to the same degree that we protect our political elites and financial elites. And we have people with guns in banks. We have people in guns, protecting our Wall Street bankers in those big fancy buildings. We have people protecting the vice president and the president and all of our political elites in Washington and then some. Right? Just think about the Washington, D.C. law enforcement off the top of my head. In the District of Columbia itself, we have, in terms of law enforcement, people with guns, the FBI, the United States Marshal Service, we have the Capitol Police, we have the District of Columbia Police, we have the, U.S. Park and Ranger Service. I think that's their official name. So again, those are just off the top of my head, some of the police forces we have protecting our political elites in Washington, D.C. So it seems to me we could spare a few armed individuals in schools to protect our children. The next point I want to make, of course, is that we know AR-15s work. And this is something that's very important. I want to talk about something that's very important that's misunderstood. The anti-gunners like to talk about how AR-15s make it easier to commit mass shootings. They make it easier to commit crime. But here's the other side of the equation. Any advantage to a criminal with an AR-15 to do bad things is an equal, if not greater, advantage to the law-abiding citizen to protect his life or the lives of others. Again, critical point to understand. Any supposed benefit to a criminal who wants to do bad things from using an AR-15, it is equally, if not more so, important and valuable to a law-abiding citizen trying to protect himself or others than it is to the criminal. And here's a critical reason why it's the case. You see, the criminal is acting, and action beats reaction because the criminal knows what he's going to do before he does it. The law-abiding citizen is not going to be in a position to know the criminal is coming. The law-abiding citizen will be surprised by the criminal. So it's actually more important, it's especially important for the law-abiding citizen to have as much firepower as possible, because whatever they have on them, whatever they've got with them, is going to be all they got for the purposes of that incident. They're not going to be able to run home and get a firearm from the closet. There won't be enough time. It won't be an option. So again, when the anti-gunners say that AR-15s help criminals do bad things, the strategic advantage to the criminal is actually a greater strategic advantage to the law-abiding citizen using those same firearms to protect their lives and the lives, again, of law-abiding Americans. And the last point I want to make is, again, this. I keep telling you the general observation of people like economist Milton Friedman that says there's two types of money in the world. There's your money and then there's everybody else's money. Now, this applies to lives as well. Why is that? Because there's two types of lives in the world. There's really your life and everybody else's lives. Or I should maybe be more clear and say there's your life and the lives of your family members on the one hand, and then there's everybody else's lives. Now, that doesn't mean you want anyone else to die, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to protect yourself and your family first and foremost. And of course, you put that in a different category in terms of protection, as does the law, by the way, because you have a fiduciary duty to protect your life. You have a fiduciary duty to protect the lives of your family, but you don't have a fiduciary duty generally to protect the lives of others. So even the law recognizes the difference between you having to protect your own family versus everybody else's lives. Meaning you value your life more and the lives of your family more than you value other people's lives. It's just common sense. It's human nature. It's just the way it is. It's just a fact. Okay, the reason why I bring this up is I am a firm believer that teachers and faculty members, administrators that want to be able to carry guns in these schools should be allowed to do so, because they're going to have a greater incentive than any law enforcement officer to protect themselves and the people around them. Because A, they're going to be there before the criminal shows up, so they're going to be able to respond immediately to the criminal, and they're going to have the greatest incentive to protect their own lives because they're the potential victim. So you're not going to have a situation where, if I'm a target, I don't have the luxury to do what the 367 some odd law enforcement agents did at Uvalde, Texas, and, not go into the room for, an hour. It's not an option because I'm already in the room. I'm being targeted. I have the opportunity. In fact, I have every incentive to try to stop the shooting right then and there. I don't have to think 3 times or twice or figure out, do I call the captain? Do I call a commander? Am I in charge? Do I have authority? No, I'm being attacked. I have the right at that point to defend myself. So I'm, at the end of the day, firmly believing that armed citizens have a greater incentive and are better positioned to protect their lives and the lives of others than even law enforcement do. Now, maybe you'll get Rambo, maybe you'll get a heroic police officer, maybe you'll get Bruce Willis and Die Hard. It's all possible, but I would not bet my life on that scenario, because it's quite often that you won't be getting people like that. You'll be getting somebody that's going to sit out in the hallway for an hour waiting for instructions from someone on high. Okay, well, interesting news out of Madison County, North Carolina. I'll put some links to the story down below about AR-15s now being stored in schools for protection of the children and the faculty. Interesting story. I hope you learned a little bit something here about that. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And again, we'll see you again soon here at the Four Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.